This is going to be a podcast of my discussion, and it's just me here, discussing the events of Robert's Rebellion. I would have put this into a video format, but that would have taken me about 3 days to edit, and we're actually on a strict video schedule here on this channel. So this is kind of just like a fun little, maybe, I guess, 15 to 20 minute podcast wherein I talk about the events of Robert's Rebellion. Maybe not in exact order, but it definitely deserves a in-length or in-depth discussion. If you want to be entered into my contest to win this $50 Amazon gift card, all you have to do is click the link right down below, pinned at the top comment of this page, and that will take you to a Gleam.io website where you can enter multiple different bonus ways. But the main way to enter this contest is to leave a like on this video. Make sure that you comment down below. Also, go ahead and subscribe and then turn your notifications on so that way you get alerted whenever I drop a Game of Thrones video. Also, whenever I announce the winner of this giveaway. It's my job to keep you all entertained throughout this long night. Alright, so let's begin. It all started off in 281 AC at the Grand Tourney of Harrenhal, and it was held by Lord Walter Rwent. There were many high-class noblemen and noblewomen from all over the Seven Kingdoms, and they all came to the Riverlands to take part in the festivities, the party, and the activities. Amongst them was the heir to Winterfell, Ned Stark's older brother, Brandon Stark. Ned was also present, of course Lyanna was present, and Benjen was there as well. The most prominent person who was present at this tourney at Harrenhal was definitely King Aerys II. It had been a while since he even left the Red Keep, and it had been even longer since he had, been out on the town and doing stuff. Excuse me, if it wasn't for Varys, he would have never gone. Varys was the one who definitely had hands-on in convincing the Mad King to leave the Red Keep and go to this tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC. The tourney was cause for a great celebration because finally spring came to Westeros after a 2-year winter. In addition, all of the White Swords had gathered to welcome their newest member, Sir Jaime Lannister. So this was right when Jaime had first joined the Kingsguard. However, the tourney's ending was not as, happy or joyous as vacation as everyone thought it would be. After winning the final tilt, oh wow, I'm just making up words. Rhaegar Targaryen was to crown a new love and beauty. Everyone thought he was going to give it to his wife, Elia Martell of Dorne, but he didn't. Rhaegar rode right past her, and then he ended up crowning Lyanna Stark of Winterfell instead. Ned is known as calling this moment the moment when all the smiles died. Basically, when all the crap hit the fan, when all of these events that led to Robert's Rebellion first began, all when Rhaegar handed a crown of blue winter roses to Lyanna Stark. These are Jon Snow's parents. And then, what kind of really kicks these off is the abduction of Lyanna Stark, arguably, anyway. It's not exactly known how much later after the tourney at Harrenhal, but she ends up seemingly being abducted by Rhaegar Targaryen. Her brother Brandon Stark was on his way to Riverrun to wed Catelyn Tully, who is actually all of the Stark children's mom. Brandon Stark, we'll get to that in a second, but Catelyn ends up marrying Ned for a reason. She was initially promised to Brandon Stark. Brandon rode at once to King's Landing with his companions, Ethan Glover, Brandon Squire, Elbert Arryn, nephew to Jon Arryn and heir of the Eyrie, Kyle Royce, and Jeffrey Mallister. Brandon rode for the Red Keep and outside its gates, unaware that Rhaegar was not there, shouted for Rhaegar to come out and die. King Aerys II had them all arrested for trying to murder the Crown Prince. The Starks aren't exactly the smartest individuals in the story. I kind of feel like if Brandon had waited a little bit, he may have been able to play a better card. He ended up summoning the fathers of those who stood accused at court. Lord Rickard Stark, Ned's father, ended up showing up. He had been on his way south with the wedding party for Brandon's wedding when he was, going to go and marry Catelyn. He went to King's Landing with 200 men. None of them returned north. In King's Landing, all of those who stood accused were executed, with the sole exception of Ethan Glover. King Aerys didn't allow for trials. Lord Rickard Stark, Ned's father, demanded a trial by combat, and the king granted his request. Rickard dressed for battle, but Aerys declared fire as the champion of House Targaryen. You just imagine, you're like getting all ready for battle, you're like, yeah, I'm about to run I'm a northerner, I'm about to destroy these motherfuckers. I'm just gonna, I can't wait. And then you get out there and you're like, hey, by the way, you're going to be fighting fire. That's like the worst thing ever. But anyway, he had Rhaegar suspended from the rafters in the throne room, where his pyromancers basically kindled a blaze beneath the Lord of Winterfell. Brandon Stark was brought in as well and placed in a Tyroshi strangling device, while a longsword was placed just outside of his reach. This guy is sick. That's why he was nicknamed the Mad King Aerys. Brandon was allowed to try and free his father, but the more he struggled to reach for the sword, the tighter the cord around his neck became. Brandon strangled himself in an attempt to reach the sword and save his father. Lord Rhaegar cooked inside of his armor. Now, George does not stray away from letting you know the details. You can just imagine a steel suit of armor getting heated up, just melting your flesh. Oh, God, that is so brutal. Next up, Aerys demanded that Lord Jon Arryn send him the heads of Robert Baratheon and Lyanna's betrothed Eddard Stark, now the Lord of Winterfell, after the deaths of his brother and his father. Robert and Eddard were in the Eyrie. However, Jon Arryn refused to oblige. Instead, he raised his banners in revolt. This act is seen as the start of the war, which would last almost a year. So this is kind of getting on to the actual part of Robert's Rebellion itself. That was kind of the precursor. You basically, just to summarize there, because I know it was a bit choppy, basically you have the tourney at Harrenhal. Everything's going fine. It's like a normal tourney. Then Rhaegar ends up winning. When he wins, he's supposed to crown the new love and beauty of the land. Everyone thinks he's going to go to his wife, Elia Martell, but then he chooses the most beautiful woman there, who, we would think that Rhaegar, the crown prince, can have any woman he wants. If he chooses Lyanna, she's obviously going to be attractive. A lot of people think that the reason why Rhaegar chose Lyanna is because he knew she was from House Stark, and he knew that he had to create, if he wanted to make the prince that was promised fruition fulfill itself, or come to fruition rather, he would have to get someone who was of the line of ice, because he himself is of the line of fire. So a lot of people think that that's the reason why he chose Lyanna, and he basically just wooed her so that he could impregnate her. And then, you have Jon Snow, who is this child who is a Song of Ice and Fire. But you also have Daenerys, who is, the princess that was promised. But anyway, after he does this, Lyanna Stark's brother finds out about this, who's on his way to go and marry Catelyn in Riverrun. Then that's when he decides to go to King's Landing once he finds out that Lyanna's been kidnapped. King Mad Aerys summons his father there, then kills both of them, and then now you have Jon Arryn basically raising all of his flags, all of his banners, and him, Robbie B, and Ned Stark are about to start a major rebellion. So we'll continue with the first thing that happens. The fighting of the rebellion began in the Vale of Arryn. Though Jon Arryn called for all of his bannermen, not all of his bannermen showed up and sided with him to fight. Those who were sided with the king, the main person being Mark Grafton called the other loyalists to aid him in barring the rebels from entering the port of Goldtown. With the port blocked, Eddard Stark decided to make his own way back to the north by crossing the Mountains of the Moon to the Fingers, where he would need to find a fisherman to carry him across the Bight. Once north, Eddard could call his banners. Goldtown's defenses eventually fell after an unknown amount of time, with Robert Baratheon saying Mark Grafton in the taking of Goldtown. He basically just killed the crap out of him. Robert sailed to Storm's End to call his own banners as well. So this was like the first kind of skirmish. This is interesting because you kind of have a similarity to this when you have all of the members of House Frey, or not all of them, Walder Frey mainly, blocking Robb from getting down south to go and potentially free his father, or just, bring war to House Lannister in King's Landing. It's a very similar thing. It's interesting how much history repeats itself throughout Game of Thrones. One thing I do want to note is these dates aren't exact, which kinds of, like, when we were talking about these spinoffs, George R. R. Martin said he didn't want to do Robert's Rebellion because everything will be known about Robert's Rebellion by the end of the story. So by the time Winds of Winter comes out, by the time A Dream of Spring comes out, we're going to find out exactly what happens in the Tourney at Harrenhal and, Robert's Rebellion that preceded that. I don't know how. I guess with Bran and his flashbacks, because like I said, we were mainly given most of what we know about the Tourney at Harrenhal through Ned's POV chapters in the first books, when he's like just reminiscing stuff. So it'll be interesting to see which way George kind of takes this. Like I said, I believe it's going to be, through Bran and with his flashbacks. But one of the next set of battles that we have, continuing on with Robert's Rebellion, is the battles at Summerhall. Just as all the lords in the Vale had sided with Jon Arryn, not all the lords in the Stormlands sided with Robert Baratheon. Sorry, just like how everyone in the Vale didn't side with Jon Arryn. The same thing happened with Robert Baratheon. The first major battle in the Stormlands took place at Summerhall. There were 3 battles. One on the map, in truth, all fought in one day. Lord Grandison, Qyburn, and Fell had gathered their hosts and planned to join forces at Summerhall. From there, they would march on Storm's End. However, thanks to an informer, Robbie B learned of their plans and rode with his knights and squires to Summerhall, where he attacked each host in turn. Robert killed Lord Fell in battle. Robbie B is racking up the kill count. He is just, I would love to see this dude back then. He's just a savage. You know what I mean? Like, bring me the breastplate stretcher. But anyway, Lord Qyburn and Grandison, as well as Lord Fell's son Silveraxe, were taken captive and brought to Storm's End when Roberts returned there after the battles for unknown reasons. There, Robert turned his enemies into friends, as both Lords Grandison and Qyburn, as well as Silveraxe, would later be loyal to Robert Baratheon. Following his victory at Summerhall, Robert was now free to march north and join up with Jon Arryn and the Northern men who had pledged their flags, or their banners rather, to the new crowned Lord of Winterfell, Ned Stark. The next main battle was actually the battle at Ashford. Basically, Robert marched out, leaving his younger brother Stannis in charge of Storm's End. At Ashford, Lord Randyll Tarly fell upon Robert's forces. Lord Randyll was the first of the loyalists to arrive, and with his van defeated Robert's forces before Lord Mace Tyrell could arrive with the main force from the Reach. Despite the fact it had been Randyll's victory, Mace Tyrell had taken credit for the victory. The battle is considered to have been indecisive. During the battle, Lord Qyburn was cut down by Randyll Tarly, who sent his head to King Aerys II. See, Randyll Tarly is another BA who we all saw him get roasted last in Season 7. Robert managed to escape capture with the bulk of his forces to join his strength with Lord Eddard Stark and Lord Jon Arryn. Following the battle, Mace Tyrell marched on Storm's End and laid siege to the castle. The siege would last for close to a year. This is like another, thing that kind of gets glimmered over a lot. But during this time, with Stannis being there, he was actually being starved out. And I had actually done a video recently on Davos, which is linked down below in the description. And I kind of glazed over that part because I know I would be covering it more. And this is that time. So basically, during this time, when Stannis is being starved out in Storm's End, he's there with his wife. And Davos, who's, a great smuggler, smuggled onions to help feed them. They were actually to the point where they were boiling down books to eat the horse glue, or the glue was made out of horses, and they were actually boiling them down because I guess that was somehow edible. And Davos shows up with his smuggled onions, which is how Davos gets the nickname of the Onion Knight. So that's how Stannis was able to survive during that time. If Davos hadn't done what he did, Stannis would likely be dead, and we wouldn't have, all of these massive Stannis fans for having such an injustice done to him on the TV show. But anyway, King Aerys, due to the events in the Stormlands, came to believe that his hand of the king, Owen Merryweather, was ineffectual. The king was even considering that Merryweather might have been so ineffectual as to possibly aid in the rebellion. In result, Owen was stripped of his lands and his title and exiled. Lord John Connington, a friend of Rhaegar's with a reputation as a warrior, was named as hand in Owen's stead. Okay, so kind of continuing on here, we pick back up with the Battle of the Bells. Eddard Stark had managed to reach Winterfell, where he called his banners. He marched his forces south and joined up with Lord Jon Arryn. Together, they negotiated with Catelyn Tully's father, Lord Hoster Tully, the Lord of Riverrun, for his support. Alright, and that's going to be wrapping up for part 1 of this Robert's Rebellion Explained video series. Part 2 will be out in a few days. If you all are enjoying this, make sure you slap a like on it. The like goal will be 420. If you are interested, this is one of your last chances to enter to win a $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do to enter this contest is make sure you slap a like on this video, leave a comment down below, then check the gleam.io link in the pinned comment at the top of this video to enter all the different bonus ways. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been